Good evening, everyone. All right. It's 6 o'clock. That means it's time for the June meeting of the Beavercreek City Planning Commission. Call it to order, and we'll have a roll call, please, ma'am.
Ms. Akers?
Yes.
Mr. Height?
Here.
Mr. Loftus?
Here.
Mr. Schreider?
Here.
Mr. Self?
Here. All present and accounted for. Agenda. Staff, we have any additions, corrections, changes, cancellations? We're good. Okay, I need approval of agenda, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as written.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
And I have a second, and we'll do that by general consensus. Thank you. Minutes from the May meeting. Any additions, corrections, changes? We good? Okay, I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes from May 2nd, 2018.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I second.
And I have a second, and we'll do that by general consensus. Thank you. This evening, we have 3 public hearings and a decision item. Before we do the public hearings, just to catch everyone up, what we do with our public hearings is we'll have a presentation by the applicant, then we'll have a report by staff, then we will throw it open to public input, and we encourage you to do that. Don't be shy. But we would ask you to limit yourself to 3 minutes. We'll put a timer on you, so we won't be here all night. If you think you need more than 3 minutes, if someone is willing to donate their 3 minutes to you, that's fine, but we're going to cut you off at 9. So 9 minutes, not 9 o'clock. So please keep that in mind. Then once we close the public hearing, and we'll see if there's any written input, then the Planning Commission will discuss and make a decision. So without further ado, let's do our first one. That's Cedarbrook Farm.
This is case number PUD 17-3, specific site plan number 2, on an application filed by NVR Incorporated, 884 Pleasant Valley Drive, Springboro, Ohio, 45066. The application requests approval of a specific site plan to allow development of 70 single-family residential homes on 28.583 acres of land located at 3240 Shakertown Road, further described as Book 6, Page 3, Parcel 63, on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. I presume there is someone here from the, step right on up, and if you would, make your presentation.
Okay, thank you. My helper here. Yeah, thank you. Working. Ah, there we go. All right. Thank you. Awesome, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Steve Lyle from the Ranke Group, 959 Congress Park Drive, Centerville, 45459. And with me tonight is Mark Locke from Ryan Homes. And of course, he'd be available to answer questions you might have later on. I'm fortunate enough to be able to come back to you after a few months with a different client in the same property. And so on the first go around, I understood a lot of the issues that the folks here were concerned with, and you were, so we tried to address those with this land plan. Cedarbrook Farm, as you know, is on Shakertown Road, east of Fairfield, North Fairfield. We have 70 residential lots this time. If you remember, last time we had assisted living along the west property line, and we replaced that with single-family homes. And we also had a direct connection from Newton Drive to Shakertown with the original plan, with a traffic circle to try and calm traffic and slow things down. A lot of the comments back then were, is there any way we can redo the plan so that the drive doesn't go straight through? And that's what we tried to accomplish with this plan. We still have, is this one? Yeah. We still have the 20,000 square foot lots around the perimeter, adjacent homes. And a lot of the concepts are the same. We have our detention area or retention down in here. and that's a larger area. If you remember with our first plan, we had a cul-de-sac that came down and filled area in the floodplain, and we've taken that out. So there's more open space in this plan. The city land use plan requires that there's a maximum of 3 dwelling units to the acre, that Shakertown Road is improved, that Newton Drive is connected to Shakertown, and that flood hazard mitigation and runoff control are taken care of with approval through the engineering department. One of the things I wanted to mention here about Shakertown Road is that we've talked with the city, and this is the same situation when I was here last time, but the city has a plan to upgrade Shakertown Road across our frontage. So we would either, we will work with the city in developing however that plan should be and contribute the appropriate amount of money to the city, probably an escrow or an assessment project in order to improve Shakertown Road, because it would be part of a larger project. Our site plan, as I said, has 70 single-family homes. This is 2.45 dwelling units the acre. Previous plan was, when you took out the assisted living area, was a little bit more dense, but it's about the same, but it's well under 3. And as I said, there's 4.7 acres open space, and that's roughly twice as much open space as we had in the last plan. These are some renderings of typical homes that would be built by Ryan Homes in here. And as I said, Mark Locke can give you more information about it, but they're high quality materials. They're going to be, starting in the upper 200s and go up into the 400s. So should be nice houses. And I'll let Mark talk about these later if you've got questions about that. Briefly addressed this before. There were 2 concerns previously, that people would be speeding through Newton Drive, and that the straight shot would end up encouraging pass-through traffic and encouraging speed. We feel that by cutting through the neighborhood and having to make a couple of bends and wind through a neighborhood, it's both a discouragement to taking this route, and it will help keep the speed down. We really don't have much of a floodplain issue now. As I said before, we had a cul-de-sac that was projecting into the floodplain. There's the rear of a couple of lots would involve filling in the floodway fringe, and we would adhere to the city code, and there are requirements for what you can and can't do in there, but we've mostly taken that out of consideration with this plan because we only have a few feet and a couple of lots that touch on the floodplain. Drainage was a big concern before also, and what we've done is tried to, by changing the land use and by changing the drainage areas to different outlet points, and by utilizing that big retention pond, this is a 100-year storm. So this is a pre-development, 28.47 CFS currently goes to the northwest. After we're done, according to my preliminary detention calculations, it'll be 3.53 CFS, which is less than a 1-year storm right now. To the northeast, 54.16 previously, post-development 8.72, also significantly reduced. And to the stream, from 54 to under 7 CFS. And this is over-detained. This is more than would be required by the city code, and we feel like we're doing this because we knew that it was a concern to the residents, and we wanted to utilize our open space to the maximum effect. And that's it for me. If you have any questions of me, or if you would like to hear from Mark Locke, or is that questions later? Or do you? Okay.
Does the representative from Ryan Homes want to make a presentation now, or do you just want to wait for us to ask you questions?
Yeah, I'll just wait if there's any questions.
Okay,
after
I'm sure there will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. that? Oh. One thing, yeah, Randy was pointing out, when I said CFS, that refers to cubic feet per second, and it's a measure like gallons per minute. So that's the rate of discharge of the stormwater. And I use that term so often, I forget that not everyone uses it. I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you for translating. Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Again, the case you have before you is PUD 17-3. It's the second specific site plan that we've seen for this application. As Planning Commission may remember, a specific site plan was approved by Planning Commission in, I believe it was February or March, and the applicant ultimately withdrew that application before they went to City Council for final approval. So this is a new application, new applicant, same engineer, but it's a whole new applicant. Again, they're looking to construct 70 single-family homes on about 28.6 acres. Project's located in southeastern Beavercreek, just west of the intersection of North Fairfield and Shakertown. East of the intersection, yes, thank you. The project was rezoned in September of last year. The map doesn't reflect it, but the area highlighted in yellow is the PUD boundaries. To the west is a PUD, RPUD, which is Ballymead. To the east and to the north is R1A, and then to the south is some PUD and R1A. The applicant did a good job of going through the access points as well as the routes through the neighborhood. There will be sidewalk and curb and gutter on both sides of the street with this new application. When it was rezoned last year, there was a stipulation that new lots abutting the existing single family be 20,000 square feet. I highlighted those 20,000 square foot plus lots in red on this map. And as you can see, the smaller lots are concentrated along the western property line as well as in the center of the project, and the lots that are between 15 and 20,000 square feet are near the perimeter and along Shakertown Road. I also want to point out, last time there was some concern about street trees and who was going to maintain them in the new lot, in the new neighborhood. Excuse me. This proposed right-of-way is 50 feet, and so we've got 5-foot tree lawns, but the trees are moved onto the private lots. And so the individuals buying the lots will be ultimately responsible for maintaining those trees and taking care of them. They also propose to add quite a bit of landscaping out front along Shakertown Road in the common areas. These will be in the HOA properties, so the HOA will ultimately be responsible for maintaining those that landscaping. Also, there's this Fairbrook Elementary tributary that runs throughout all along. A long distance from each side of the property, north and south. But if you look on a 3D image of the property, there's a lot of trees and landscaping existing in that tributary. And we want to make sure that in perpetuity, because some of that is within HOA property in the future, that they maintain that and don't start cutting trees and any shrubbery or anything, because that helps protect the riparian buffers and helps negate or lower any erosion that would happen because of any excess rain. But we added a condition that be a no tree removal zone, no landscaping removal zone without express permission of the planning department. In case something dies, we won't have to go back and come back to planning commission to remove a tree. So we added that condition. Again, there's 2 proposed stormwater detention ponds. This down here near Shakertown Road's proposed to be a wet pond, so it'll retain water, have surface water. We did add a condition that they have to have a aeration device, a fountain or something, to make sure that doesn't become stagnant water. And then the pond to the northwest would be a dry pond, so it would be a depression in the ground to hold water for a while and ultimately slowly trickle that water into the existing storm system. The applicant pointed out the construction, a few conditions in the proposed resolution. One is that exterior construction is limited to Monday through Saturday, 7 to 7, so that we don't have somebody out there 5 in the morning doing grading. But it's exterior, so if there's a house on the roof, obviously a plumber or electrician can go in and do their work if they want to go do it whenever they want. Also, no construction traffic on existing Newton, so we will make sure that dump trucks or any of the heavy equipment or any equipment go through the existing neighborhood to come to this proposed neighborhood through the back end, but they have to construct a construction access directly off of Shakertown. again, the aeration in the ponds, also to help, with safety, there's a requirement for 1 photoelectric light per lot. So it's just the lamp out in front of each lot. And also a street light, not a traffic signal, but a street light at Shakertown and Dumar, which is the name of the street that intersects with Shakertown Road. Again, there are 20 conditions in the resolution for your consideration. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's request. It falls within their request is compliant with what the rezoning, all the conditions of the rezoning from last year. And I'll be here to answer any questions following the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice, concise, complete report as usual. Appreciate that. Okay, it's public hearing time, so it's time for y'all to come forward with either for, against, or simply to ask questions, and we'll note the questions down and then ask them of the applicant or of staff as necessary. So step right up. Don't be shy.
Hi, I'm Matt Fieser. I live at 755 Newton Drive. When I first looked at the proposed drawings, I noticed an issue with the retention pond on the northwest side of the property. The Valley Mead retention pond is 5 feet higher in elevation, and it feeds into the same sewer as the new proposed pond is. And that sewer is certainly overwhelmed during heavy rains. When there's a relief at the corner of Maple and Newton, where in case there's too much water flow, it comes out. It actually surges up 1 or 2 feet. So there's a lot of back pressure there. There's a lot of water that runs through that pipe already. So if there's all that back pressure, it's just going to backfeed into that retention pond the way it's set up. I called Mr. Jeff Mormon on that. And he also noticed another issue, but I'll let him speak on that. Something about the exit to that proposed pond is actually lower than where that relief is, so water doesn't flow uphill very well. But so maybe running another sewer adjacent to the existing one, so that way the back pressure doesn't fill that pond up during these heavy rains. Also, so connecting Newton. I've been opposed to that from the beginning. I know the city's pushing for that. They're claiming safety. But I see it as a safety risk for those that live on Newton and those that walk on Newton. The old section of Newton is 17 feet wide and there's no sidewalks. Parts of Newton have pretty steep drainage ditches. And there's been constant complaints I've been reading on the Nextdoor app as far as speeding, where older existing neighborhoods are connected to newer developments. And Cedarwood Drive, Tallowood Drive, Sunbeam Avenue, Coy Drive, these are all repeatedly on this Nextdoor app that I read about people constantly speeding. So, and also, per the zoning requirements, the site arrangement requirements, designation F, it does call a .064 designation F. It says safety, throughout the site, throughout the community, through travel. I would highly encourage the commission to be proactive here and implement a traffic calming right at where Old Newton and New Newton will come together. I think putting one of those, not a speed bump, not a asphalt speed bump, but one of those island type things that over like in the Walmart parking lot. I'm not sure what they would call them, but they're pretty big. Speed table, yeah. I would like to see one of them there. I know that's inconvenient, but I think in itself it's also effective because of that reason. My next concern is the well water. So Valley Mead, when they built their complex, they hit an Argentine spring. So all of our well water is kind of running down to the creek. It's being diverted down there, and they're at a much higher elevation than this current proposed development is. And my concern is, what if Ryan Home does the same thing? They strike some springs and compromise all those that are on well that run off Newton. Has any studies been done to pretty much eliminate the risk of something like that happening. I mean, is the city going to place any, safeguards that would protect those on well water? I'm at 3 minutes.
Getting close.
Okay. Cover well water. So the zoning code. So I found some issues there. Land use intensity 158.071 designation C. For RPUDs, the coverage of total gross area of the development shall not exceed 45% of the entire development. I want to know who monitors that. So that includes, streets, sidewalks, rooftops, anything that covers greenery. So I did a rough.
Would somebody like to
Okay.
donate 3 minutes here? Okay. I need your name, please. Jim? Okay. Okay, fine, thank you. Okay. The clock has started again.
All right, thank you, Jim. So I did a rough MSJ calculation, and the streets are already at 15% coverage. I did I did driveways and sidewalks, which is another 5%. And I did the driveways based on the requirements of 12 foot wide, and I did them all the length of the setbacks of 30 foot. So some of these driveways will be longer, be wider. I'm sure the peripheral lots will have bigger houses, probably have 3-car garages. That only leaves about 25% coverage, and you're getting ready. You're gonna go put 70 rooftops there. I know you could go up 50 feet. However, these are gonna be long, skinny homes. They're still gonna be. It's gonna be really close. And then what about accessory structures? Is that included? So if these people want to build sheds, is that something that is part of that? It's not really defined in the zoning code. Another issue with the zoning code, land use intensity 158-0.071 designation D, lot requirements. The width of a lot width, the minimum lot width in any one family or PUD shall be 60 feet. So I didn't read or interpret this to be an average or any part of the lot to be a 60-foot minimum. And I'm thinking that, let's say you had a pie-shaped lot and the big part of your pie shape is 60 foot. Well, that means your entrance could be 12 foot wide, just, wide enough for your driveway. I mean, I wouldn't think that would be acceptable. So I noticed lot 40 is only 55 feet, 41 is 43 feet, 42 is, ironically, 42 feet. 43 is 41 feet, and lot number 64 is 58 feet. So these don't meet that requirement. And also, I'm not against the development per se. I mean, it's inevitable this is going to happen. I am, however, against the population. These small lots they're 0.20 something of an acre. They're 5th acre lots. They do meet requirements. However, is that in Beavercreek's best interest? I mean, is that going to really benefit Beavercreek to pack all these homes into one small area? I mean, I think it's kind of benefiting people's pockets more than anything. But I guarantee anybody that gets the opportunity to come up here and speak, that's going to be at least one of their concerns is the population. I mean, even if you combined all those lots, the small lots, you still have 40 homes. And doubling those 0.20, you'd be 0.4 something of an acre. And then the 5-foot yard offset, side offsets. I mean, I built a garage a couple years ago, and I built a shed, and both of them had to be 10 foot off the property line. And I'm following some kind of what appears to be an arbitrary requirement because the house right next door could be 5 foot off the property line. And the 15-foot minimum separations. I would recommend that you mandate that these houses are painted green on the sides because of all the mildew that's going to be growing on because they're so close together.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right. And last thing, for completion of this development, what's the specified time in the scheduled development submitted by the applicant? That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Weezy. I live at 3351 Leewood Drive. The primary reason why I got into this in the first place was because my wife and I like to walk down around Newton, and with all the additional cars and the lack of walking space, it's going to make it a bit of a hazard for us to be able to get around. And we're not the only ones that walk. A lot of people walk their dogs and people around that area too. And it's just a concern for us with we expect to see additional traffic because of the way the routes, the way they've connected, well, that's basically the way they've connected Newton Drive. I have a lot of experience since some of my family lives over in Spring Ridge off of Trebein and New Germany Trebein, and they have a similar connection to the next door lot area. And I swear the people that don't live in that Platte area drive twice as fast as the people that live in the Platte. And there's kids playing, and it's pretty crazy. My daughter lives down in a cul-de-sac, something like that. But people make that curve up there. They make that curve going pretty fast, and they don't slow down. And even though there's a stop sign, they don't stop. Of course, the normal things. But anyway. I wanted to go through my list here. There was one question someone asked about, have the planners considered the effect on the added users on the city water system? And someone actually addressed and asked if there would be a loss of water pressure in their homes over in Terra. Having looked at the land a couple times, because it's a lot bigger hill than you realize when you're standing there watching the water come down during the rainstorm. There'll be a lot of reshaping of the property, and I'm concerned they're going to expose another natural spring. If they do expose another natural spring, it's possible they're going to affect the wells, because I think everyone to the north side and pretty much the east side of that area is on a private well, and I know we're on a private well, and there are some other people that have been concerned about the wells in the area too. Apparently some other development may have affected their well a little bit too. There's another question someone brought up about the impact on the already crowded schools. Matt mentioned about having fewer homes. That would help. I don't know what the impact has been considered about effect of already overcrowded schools. Thankfully, we've already talked about provisions on Shakertown Road and the concern of flooding from Maplewood, and it does flood. Let's see. And the lot sizes are not really as near as the lot sizes of the next door neighbor Platte, and our Platte's been there for 50 years. In fact, my house is 59 years old. And let's see,
30 seconds.
I'm concerned about the connection, the way the road narrows from about 23 feet down to about 17 feet for the connection between the new Newton and the old Newton also. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I figured somebody would get up.
Hi, my name is Lisa Witt. I'm at 570 Rustic Trail. So my questions have to do with flooding. Being on Rustic Trail, I'm actually in the flood zone. Luckily, my property sits up high enough, or my house does, but the property floods with every rain. Like torrentially, that little creek becomes a river. And so my concern is, has the hydrologic and hydraulic analysis been done, an analysis that the water course will not be reduced by all this construction that's happening? My second concern is the traffic congestion. Just coming here tonight, the traffic that was coming up Fairfield towards Shakertown, just endless, coming from the lights, everybody getting off work. So I'm very concerned about traffic congestion. It's already a problem. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to get from Shakertown to 35. It's just ridiculously busy, and 170 well, you think 70 homes times 2, 140 cars at least. So that congestion piece would be a concern. And then what size are the houses? I didn't quite understand when he was talking. I didn't catch those numbers. So I'd like to know the smallest size house with the current proposed plan versus the largest size house. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sandra Hawker. I live at 3411 Leewood Drive, which is at the corner of Newton and Leewood, and we do have a big traffic problem there. And I am concerned about the traffic, and I agree that that's way too many houses to put on those lots. Years ago when my family moved here, when I was just 14, you were coming to Beavercreek to get away from the overcrowding, and we don't want the overcrowding again. And also, I'm wondering what the effect will be on our wells, because I will be fairly close to that development. And let's see, I'm happy to see the sidewalks, the gutters. A lot of what they're doing I'm really happy with, but I'm concerned about the traffic. And you know, Mr. Self, getting out on Fairfield Road from Newton can be quite trying at times. It's already quite busy. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Helen Morrow. I live on the corner of Newton and Hickory Court. And I just had 4 concerns that have already been voiced already. The first one was the speed bump, because there are a lot of children that are in our neighborhood now. We had an Easter egg hunt this past spring, and we had dozens of children show up for it just in that little tiny Merrick Park. And I was so tickled. But I'm just saying there's a lot more children than there were even 10 years ago. The well water is my second concern, because I understood from the development of the condos, the four-family ranch condos that were built on the corner of Shakertown and Fairfield, that they hit 3 natural springs at that time, and my water in my well has diminished greatly. It is much poorer quality than it was 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago when I first moved here. The rainwater runoff, I still get geese in my backyard because of the water when it rains hard. And also, as far as traffic, turning left on Fairfield, sometimes you do have to wait a few minutes to get out of Newton onto Fairfield Road. So even turning right at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to work, I have to wait sometimes for, 30 to 90 seconds. But turning left, I just can't imagine. Most of the time I'd go down to Jonathan and turn around and come back. So those are my 4 concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you standing in the back, there's some nice seats for you right up front here if you'd like. You're good. Okay. I just hate to see somebody stand.
I will stand. I'm Sandy Woodruff. I live at 541 Rustic Trail. I'll get it out. Just a couple of things. Obviously, nobody that lives in Coy Homestead Estates is thrilled with having a street come out opposite ours, but probably nothing can be done about that. I have to say, you've put a few nice houses where you can see them from Shakertown, except for that long strip on Newton, so we can pretend that all the houses are going to look nice when they're all rammed in there like tenements. There has been no effort on Newton to even curve the road to make it look less ugly than a row of boxes that's coming straight on there. And on a personal note, I'm not thrilled with having construction at 7 in the morning, because we can hear 35, let alone something that's going to be across the street from us.
Thank you. Now, I know if I sit here quietly long enough, somebody's going to get up. All done? Last chance.
Hello, Matt Birdsall, 276 Ashley Court, against. 3 minutes. Everybody's been referencing Next Door. Do you guys know Next Door? Yeah, cool. I was just gonna sit here and read this stuff. Like, I simply don't want Ryan homes there. My wife and I own a Ryan home. We use it as a rental property. It's a nightmare. Like, I can't even begin to tell you the amount of work that we have to put into this property simply to maintain it. And now we're gonna cram an absurd amount of tiny little homes that I know are built shoddily. Like, if you peel back the drywall, you'll see that there's PVC where there should be copper. Like, it's standard protocol. And there's several incidences of people having the exact same experience. And so I just don't understand why we've got, you know, custom homes, and we're cramming this establishment here. And frankly, I agree with everybody else. The flooding is absurd, and it doesn't seem to help about anything that we're doing here. So I don't understand why we continue to use green space in a way that seems to, like somebody else mentioned, line pockets instead of provide aesthetic appeal for the community and, you know, a boost in some way. It's just, it seems like, I don't know, just simply an eyesore. And it just doesn't make sense. So, is that strong enough? I feel like we'd all been pretty passive about this. Like, I don't want it there at all. I do not want it there, and I'm content to continue to come at every single meeting. This is kind of fun. Everybody's in agreement, and so there's nothing we can do about it. Why not? I don't want that street there. Like, I grew up in this town, and just like somebody else mentioned, this is why we live here, because there's green space. There are farms. I like that. Like, I'm driving down the road. It's beautiful, and we're just going to cram in another development of ugly, cheap homes that are built shoddily. There it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
God, get up there. I mean, this is ridiculous. Everybody is in agreement. We don't want it there.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Get fired up.
This is a repeat from 2 other times. I don't know how many of you are new from when the last development was being. How many are new? Is on the board?
Just me.
Oh, just you. Okay. I'm Karen Ingman, and I live on 3184 Willow Bend, which is at the end of JL, where the creek curves. And I think somebody on Rustic Trail that is concerned too, because I am, because it floods when we have rain. And it needs to be dredged, and there's trees laying in the creek, and when we have 24/7 water, we have a waterfall behind our house. It sounds pretty, but it's the drain that's going all the way down Maplewood. And if you get a bigger one, we're going to have a bigger waterfall. Nice to listen to. But anyway, I'm concerned about where the big pond is going to go drain into the creek. Where does that come in? So, okay. Thank you.
All done? Going once, going twice. I'll close the public hearing. Was there any written input? No. No written input. Okay. Now it's time for planning commissioners, and I'll start on my right.
Well, that's very appreciative.
The new guy.
Mr. Chair. So, as as a Beavercreek resident, as someone who lives in the same area, I mean, as a personal note, I share a lot of these concerns. The questions are, what impacts do they have on our ability to make those decisions here, right? So the school system, we just hit the highest city as far as increased people, right? 1,744 new people just moved to Beavercreek. Our schools are up there. So I share those same thoughts. The things that we have control over, the things that I'm concerned about now, are many of the same questions that were asked from the audience. You know, the sewage, the drainage, the safety, those kind of things. So I'm sure we're going to have some more questions, and we'll wade through those. But I'm going to pass for now.
Okay. Yep. You were the punty.
All right. Let's just start with staff. Mr. Burkett, you can answer a couple questions for me. I'll leave some of these questions for my other fellow commissioners because there's a big apple to bite off here. So
sure.
I'm actually going to address something that nobody brought up and it might be putting cart before the horse at this point, but the temporary signage, typically when we've seen other developments in the couple years I've been here, we specifically forbid temporary signage. It seems like on a lot of developments. These signs are, I know they meet the 40 square foot. They're really tall and they're big and blue, and they just, how long is a temporary sign allowed to be up? Because I've seen some of these temp signs have been up for 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, you want to advertise where, I mean, you want to advertise the neighborhood and how homes for sale. Typically, when we have no temporary signs, that's for commercial development, so that, because the commercial development is always going to have sales, I mean, forever.
Right.
And so we don't want 10 years, 15 years of temporary signs. I mean, these are intended to, I mean, we need to mark all the home sites. You know,
well, and I understand. I'm talking more. I'm talking about the big, tall, the ones that we have. What was it, New Germany, Trebrine, or Beaver Valley? Those. I mean, they've been there for.
And you want to advertise the property for sale. I
mean, no, I understand that, but from aesthetic, especially the big blue sign. I mean, it's just. I mean, aesthetically a little challenging.
That's what they propose. If you want to, modify those, I mean, you're more.
What can we consider a temp sign? Is there a definition, a zoning definition? I mean, as far as how long it can be temporary?
Not on these residential neighborhoods for sale. I mean, we've had them in other ones, other neighborhoods that go as long as there's typically as long as there's a home lot still for sale.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, when there's no lots, when it's filled up, they're going to have to remove the sign.
Okay. What about fencing on the north side of that detention pond? Is there going to be any fencing or safety, because there is a residential just kind of right across there? Is there?
I mean, we don't typically like to put fences around ponds. Somebody climbs. I mean, that's going to be a dry pond anyway, so I mean that's just going to be dry most of the time.
Okay.
So it's just a depression in the ground, but we don't like to put fencing around, say, even wet ponds, just because somebody climbs them. And it'd be hard to get back out of the water, and so you don't want to make it impossible to get. Climb out of the water.
Sure.
If somebody did, for whatever reason, climb the fence, so a kid or something like that.
Okay.
So we try not to fence off ponds.
We've talked about this before. A speed table came up in the last conversation. I think with the length of the road, I don't think it's I really don't like speed tables. Right. I mean, I don't. My truck doesn't like speed tables. But I think maybe to address concerns would be something maybe to consider. How do we address the well in the spring issue when this comes up? If there is some sort of loss of head pressure or things like that in the existing neighborhoods, and I mean, how do we address that from a legal standpoint? Because the way I understand rights is you own what's directly beneath you. Anything to the side of you is some. But how do we address it if there is a serious?
I'll let him talk about the spring construction, but just want to point out that every house constructed, every new lot, they're all going to be on county water and county sewer. So there's going to be no new wells dug out here, and there's going to be no septic tanks. So just
okay. So more, I guess, would be: do we have any shallow wells that we understand in the geology underneath? Let's say the bottom 10 feet down, maybe, or so. I mean, I don't know how much topsoil we're gonna have to strip to get to the fillable soil.
Sure. And what I would suggest is there's companies out there like Bowser Morner, for example, where we can do some testing out there and figure out what exactly is underneath where they're going to be building and the impacts of it. So I'd be happy to work with the developers and designer. And we could work something out to do a study and make sure we're going to be okay with the wells, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he's not opposed. So.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. I've got a couple questions for the developer. Come up either.
Do it now?
Yeah, if you can come up to the... So how many models, how many individual types of models are we going to have here? Are we talking about 6 track homes and we're going to build the same one over and over? Or how many different models are you expecting to
We
build
typically in any given community will offer anywhere between 5 and 9 different home types. Each of those home types has multiple elevations. In this particular case, all the homes will be our Craftsman or Cottage Series homes. You can see that in the elevations with the garage doors, the webbing. Some of the product has a vertical board and batten. Some product has shakes. So each individual product has multiple elevations to those products.
Okay. You guys had an average acreage for the lots, what's going to be the average size of the homes back there?
The average size of the
Yeah,
homes?
I mean, you've got quite a big range from 1,500 to
Yeah, and not
3,200.
only that, but we've got, as all homes are, you have a base square footage, and then you have options that can be added to some of these homes. So we're going anywhere from, let's say, right at 1,600 square feet all the way up to 3,200 square feet. It really depends on the individual whether they choose to add the morning room or the family room bump out or the master bedroom bump out. It really depends. Typically in these ranch homes, we typically average in that 19 to 21, 2,200 square feet on average.
Okay. And then would you be amicable to doing like a Doppler study or something similar to understand the just the water table and things that are, I would say, probably at a 10-foot, ish kind of barrier down below the property?
I guess I would be willing to at least discuss that further, not knowing what that entails and what the impact of that is. That's something I think we would be willing to consider. Again, what truly is the results of that and how does that impact our ability to, build homes, that's something we'd have to look into. That's the first time I'd ever heard there was an issue with the potential wells, that there was an issue.
Yeah,
and the
we'd
fact
kind
that
of
we're
heard
going to
some
be
things previously at
the fact that we're going to be on, as was mentioned, on basically public utilities, public sewer and water. I guess that's something we could look into.
Sure. Well, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we're addressing specifically that your neighbors are on well.
Right.
The other solution would be
what was done with the condominiums that were built? Was the study done when they came through and got approval? Was that study done when they came through? And if so, what were the results? If not, why weren't they required to do that?
Well, right, and this might be a case of we found something, so now we know there's a known issue.
Okay.
That's probably more relevant, I would think. Would that be correct, that no study was done, but now that we know there's an issue, we should probably investigate it?
It was encountered when they were actually constructing the site. They encountered a bunch of wells and a whole bunch of water. And I was out there today, and it's still a pretty decent flow of water coming from those springs heading down that way. So it's still going. So.
Okay.
And knowing that, then yes, I would 100% be willing to work with the city on that.
Okay, so if we put something in the resolution, you wouldn't be opposed to, again, if it's going to cost you $2 million to do it, you can ground penetrate.
Right, I want to leave that open. If
Sure.
it's a study that's going to cost, it might be cost prohibitive, and it may create a situation where this deal isn't
Sure.
economically feasible. I don't foresee that being the case. So if that were a condition that were added, I would not have an issue with that.
Perfect. I think I'm good for right now, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm sure
Ms.
a lot of other
Aker
people have questions.
Has a whole page of questions.
It's the lawyer in me. I take a lot of notes.
Oh, I need that.
I guess to kind of piggyback on that discussion, are we comfortable, and I guess this is open for us to discuss, are we comfortable going forward with approving a plan not knowing what the site conditions are before we even move any further? Do we?
Again, the site conditions are part of the engineering of the actual site. I mean, the grades, the dirts, there's things you encounter on the site all the time. I mean, we can't require somebody to go out and look for Indian burial grounds or anything like that ahead of construction of the site. Once they find those, there's provisions in place to take care of it. Obviously, it was mentioned before, the Valley Meat Spring that runs, the artesian well runs through the neighborhood into the creek. The full cost of civil engineering ahead of approvals is something we've never required or experienced in the past. The full sets of engineering drawings, the gradings, the environmental phase 1 environmentals, phase 2 environmentals if required, all are done post-approval. But again, that doesn't give them a blank slate to go do whatever they want. They still have to do all those studies, fully engineer the site.
What are
And
the
then
provisions that are in place if these springs get hit?
they
Just
would
like
have to-
happened before?
With Valley Mead, they're the same thing. I mean, they'll do the study, as Mr. Mormon indicated, and then they would have to reroute and adjust exactly like Valley Mead did. Valley Mead attempted to let it drain. Obviously, the springs there's a ton of water over here underneath the ground, so they piped it and ran it through the neighborhood to the creek.
And we have people here saying that their wells are now impacted by that. And so my
I don't
concern.
know that that's true. I mean, I don't know if anybody's wells have been impacted by Ballard. I mean, I think the concern was that they could potentially be impacted with anything happening here, and I think that's where the study would come in place. But to my knowledge, I've never experienced or had anything where development has caused anybody's wells to run dry anywhere in the city. So we'll have that study done, but again, all adjustments will be in place for anything that comes up if they look at that study.
Okay.
Can I just address the well situation briefly?
Absolutely.
Please.
When we came back in here with the SSP last fall and went through the approval process, this issue came up before. And we do have soil studies in the area. They have not found any springs. They did a number of borings through the property. But our discussion then with you was about how wells work, and what happens is when you use water, you kind of draw down, kind of, if you imagine a cone that goes down, and that's, so what happens is the groundwater elevation, if it gets into that cone, is where you have an issue. Our site is, you know, we're going to be filling in the low areas because we want to get all that water around to the stream. We're not going to be cutting down very deep, other than for the sewer. That'll be probably 6 feet deep in that area, and then we're filling on top of it. Most of the folks have wells that are much deeper than that, and as they're drawing water, you know, if these artesian wells are flowing, that means the groundwater is up. Okay, so there could be a lot of other reasons why groundwater gets impacted over the years, but usually what you're concerned about with development would be is if your intensity of use was drawing down water and keeping other people from using it, because we're going to have county water and because we're going to be filling in there and grading around that. That was the discussion we had last time, and that's why you guys eventually felt like it wasn't going to impact us. We do have studies, and perhaps we can have Jeff look at those studies and you know, incorporate that with any well data he has. But I just want to let you know we did look at this already.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I guess while you're up here, before you sit down, and I'm not sure that this is a question for you or if it's a question for Mr. Outlot, but what about the time and schedule? I know that Mr. Fieser had that question about time and schedule in the building process. Do we have a rough estimate?
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Our plans would be to go through all the approval process. The next step obviously would be do the full engineering on the site. Our goal would be to break ground in 2019 for sales in late spring, early summer of 19. The only thing we haven't determined is if this is going to be developed in one section, meaning all 70 lots are going to be put in at one time, or if we're going to split it into two sections. It will not be more than two sections, though.
Okay. And would you be opposed to the speed table?
I know previous plans, there were, discussions with speed tables, with roundabouts. From a builder standpoint, I don't have anything against a speed table. I can tell you if a speed table is placed up at the, I think someone said where New Newton and Old Newton are connecting, I don't know how much impact that's going to have on the new residents and how many people will go north to go out to. It will affect people coming, in my opinion, coming south and cutting through the neighborhood. I'm not opposed to it. It's something that will be a part of the public right-of-way. The city will be responsible for that as far as the public right-of-way maintenance. I don't know if you have them in other areas of the city and what the street maintenance director, how they feel about them. It is a calming device. We felt that the realignment of the streets from a speed standpoint would slow people down. But again, as someone said, it doesn't matter if there's stop signs or if you put a speed table, people will still go 50 miles an hour over it and jump it. They will. That's just, it does, there are studies that it is a calming device. To what extent, especially when you've got a distance of probably 350, 400 feet until that first intersection where someone would be making a eastbound turning movement. than to make a southbound turning movement to go out to Shakertown. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. From a construction standpoint, we'll be responsible to construct it to whatever city standards are, but we're going to dedicate the streets, and the city's going to be responsible for it from there on out. So it might be more of a question to your roads department director or city staff. We did meet with them and talk about it. I'm not a big fan, like the guy with the pickup, I'm not a big fan of them either. I mean, but if that's something that ultimately the city believes is going to serve the purpose that it's supposedly designed for, yeah, that's not a big issue.
Okay. I think that I will stop here. Thank you, sir.
All right.
So I'll start again. Developer.
Turn your mic on.
Gotcha. Well, I guess it's for both of you. It's more to do with the flooding. There was a lot of concerns. I know your presentation showed that it's vastly improving the conditions that are currently on that property. Has there been anything, have you done anything to address the concerns of the surrounding areas where all of that water may end up?
You know, with our first plan, we had to look into doing some cross sections in the stream and seeing how the development would affect the flood elevations. With this one, we're not altering the stream, you know. But the point is that we had looked into it a little bit as far as the stream geometry, and we're just putting less. There's going to be less water going into the stream during storm events, so it's going to help big time. It's going to help a lot to the northwest, because what we're doing is we're regrading this because of the issues around the northern perimeter, and we're taking a lot of that water through grading and routing it down to that pond, okay, and then holding it in that pond so that it still doesn't go out any faster than the water's going out right now. So we're cutting off a lot of the water going northwest and northeast. So that's going to help those folks, and then the pond's big enough on the bottom that we're going to significantly reduce the amount of water going out into the stream. So it's going to help, no question.
Okay, what about during the few years of construction while this is being developed? I mean,
well, the pond's done first phase, and that's where the water quality is done. You know, the state of Ohio has water quality requirements now too, where you have to hold water in there for 48 hours so that the sediment falls out. We'd use that for that as well. So that's one of the first things in the sequence of construction.
So you'll have the proper protections during construction to prevent any runoff and things of that sort during the course of the phases of construction?
Correct.
Okay. So I see the average price is advertised as $370,000. With 46% of these lots on site being under, I think it was 10,000 square foot. Second here. Yeah, between 86 and 10,000 square foot lots. The majority of the properties are made up by that. So how do you come up to that $370,000 average price? I'm just curious because you can only fit.
Well, all the products that we are going to be offering in this community will fit on the lots that are designed. The previous plan that was in before you that you approved earlier in the year, our product wouldn't fit on. We had to make the lots actually a little bit larger to accommodate the products that we're going to make. All of our products will fit on these lots. A lot of construction has changed from where, let's say back in the early 70s, where a lot was wider but not as deep. The houses, what they've done now is they've just shifted. So you've got a smaller front foot of the house. So these houses are on average about 50 feet wide. And then the square footage differs from the amount of the depth of the homes. So how do we arrive at that average sales price? Before we even tie this property up and go to the basically hiring engineers to do layouts and drawings, we run our economic feasibilities also and determine what products we're going to offer and what price points do we believe the market is willing and able to bear. and that's where we've come up with that. We're going to start about in the 290s on the smallest ranch, and go up to, and this is starting sales price. This isn't once a customer goes in and puts options in the home, up to about 400,000. So by running our pro forma, we're pretty confident that that's going to be the average price that we're going to hit in this community.
Okay, thank you. Got a couple questions for staff.
Yes, sir.
So can you remind me what the maximum square footage is that we could build on a 8 to 10,000 square foot lot with all the setbacks and things of that sort?
What the maximum square footage the house was?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the footprint of the house. I know you can go up
It's
and
just as long as it
down.
meets the setbacks. There's a 5-foot side yard setback, but the 2 side yards combined have to be at least 15 feet. And I believe the front yard is just one second. There's a 30-foot front yard setback and a 35-foot rear yard setback. So I mean, yeah, if you subtract the 15 from 60 feet, that gives you 50 feet wide of buildable area, and then
I guess where I'm going with it
you're talking
if
several
there's
thousand square feet you could fit on a.
If there's 5 to 9 different floor plans that are going to be offered in this area, there's probably only a couple floor plans out of those 9 that are going to fit on those small lots. That's not the case.
I mean, as the builder had said earlier, of all their 5 they show 5 different models with 5 different footprints. Each one of those could fit on any single lot in this development. So even the largest footprint house that they're showing could fit on the smallest lot in this development.
All right, on condition number 10, just for clarification, it's where if the tree that's planted in the front yard dies, it's to be replaced, and I believe it says by the owner.
By the property owner, yeah.
By the property owner. Just for clarification, is that forever?
I mean, the intent is to have a front. I mean, every neighborhood we've got a lot of neighborhoods where they have to have front yard trees. So I mean, in perpetuity. So yeah, I mean, theoretically, it'd be forever.
Would the HOA be responsible for enforcing that?
The individual lot owner. I mean, technically, it would be. I mean, it's our site plan. So if we saw it, we would send a letter and say, hey, you have to put a new tree in. It's dead, or removed, or dying, or whatever. So it'd be city. We'd send them a letter and say, hey, this is the condition, and you need to replace your tree.
All right. And then one last thing here, it was brought up about building, outbuildings, sheds, things of that sort. I would imagine that follows typical zoning code.
I mean, they'll need to
There's not anything different than any other neighborhood, right?
Right. I mean, they would, with the 5-foot side yard setback, that's where the accessory structure would have to be off that. But they still couldn't have a shed in the front yard like you can in any other neighborhood.
You got something?
I was just going to say, to both your points, sorry, as far as that tree is concerned, yeah, it is a requirement of the city, but that will also be in the homeowners association documents about the requirement as by the city for that tree. And as far as accessory structures, we've already discussed this, they will strictly be prohibited. Even if the city allows them, the homeowners association documents will prohibit sheds and accessory structures in the rear yards. We're not going to allow them.
Well, I got you up here. One last question.
Yep.
Is there any intent to stagger on the west side there, that row of houses? Is there any intent to stagger those houses as they're going down, or are they going to be standard, everything's 50 foot back or 30 foot back, every single house all the way?
We typically set the houses at that front setback line. The houses, though, are somewhat, what's the word I'm looking for? They've got different front facades, basically, and depths of the facade. So garage steps might stick out 2 feet. So it's not...
Yeah.
These houses are a little bit different than what you might see in some of our other products in other markets where they truly are, you know, in a pretty straight line.
Right, that's what I was
We're not doing that here, and nor is the product that we're offering here what we would offer in other markets.
Okay. So, I guess, sorry to bring you back up here, staff. My notes are a little bit all over the place.
Yep.
So the intent, I haven't personally seen the Shakertown Road improvement. Does that go all the way up to the intersection North Fairfield and Shakertown?
No, it'll be the frontage of their property from the corner here until you get to this. There's a culvert here where the bridge goes over that creek, so they'll go up to the. But again, as the applicant pointed out, you know, the city's doing a road project in the next couple of years, and typically, if there wasn't a road project, they'd be. I mean, if there wasn't something in the future, we'd have them construct. You know, the curb and gutter now, but
so
we
that
don't
will
want to have them
eventually
construct it and then have to remove it 2 years from now.
No, I understand. I'm more concerned with the traffic issues that were addressed by the community. If, you know,
there's already a turn lane for Rustic, so they'll be able to utilize that existing widened pavement to have a left turn lane into with this project. So yes.
Okay, but there's no intent in the future to improve and or change the intersection at North Fairfield and Shakertown. That will stay with the three, with the...
The short answer is yes, but not with this project.
Correct. No, I'm just looking in the future to address that concern.
Right.
Yeah, if I could just, what we have in our capital plan, we have money budgeted this year anyways to do the design work. Project that we have in mind would begin back, I believe it's, the 2nd Street back west of North Fairfield. I think it's like Timberleaf, yeah, is where we'd start. And we go all the way to Carthage with that project. And as part of that, you know, right now we're missing a left turn lane. If you're going eastbound on Shakertown right at North Fairfield, we're going to be adding that left turn lane. We're going to be adding side paths, sidewalks, the whole 9 yards. And luckily, you know, this project is kind of almost in the middle of the project that we already had planned, which is nice because they'll be assessed for the improvements along their frontage, which will help with the project also.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you very much. All right. Thank you, everyone. Back to Alex.
My turn.
No.
You done?
No, I'm done.
Okay. In the interest of disclosure, I know most of you all know that I live in the Apple Valley Plat, but I have checked with our legal counsel. I'm outside the 500-foot limit, so I am not recusing myself from the discussion or the voting. That being said, a couple of points were brought up, or a couple of questions were brought up that I wanted to try to address. First of all, whenever you take a vacant parcel, which is what we have here, and a developer does anything to it, in this case, developing it, they cannot exacerbate runoff from the property. Once it's fully developed, the runoff from that property cannot exceed the runoff from the property when it was vacant. So, and it's been my experience after a number of years on Planning Commission, whenever a vacant parcel is developed, it usually improves the water flow in the area. So I think, and I know about the water problem on the south side of our plat, and I think this will improve it. The Ballymead development, they ended up putting in almost 1,200 feet of drain to drain those springs. And if springs are uncovered here that need to be drained, the developer will have to drain them. So I'm not saying don't worry about it, but I've got confidence in our city engineer and making sure that this is not going to happen, that it will most likely improve the situation, but it cannot make it worse. Someone made a point, one of the speakers made a point about side yards. The difference here is in R1A zoning, you have to have a 10-foot side yard setback. This is not R1A zoning. That's why the 5 feet. And staff, correct me if I'm wrong here, just jump right up and tell me. But if I remember reading my zoning code, that's the way that is. Another interesting point, and this was brought up about traffic, and I didn't realize this until staff made me aware of it some years ago. If you build 100 apartments and then you build 100 houses, the houses will actually have slightly more traffic flow than apartments, but it's not that much different. And as far as the schools go, we as a planning commission cannot take into consideration the impact on schools on a development. I know that sounds funny, but that's the way the law reads. And also, I think the point was made, there's no city water in Beavercreek, folks. It's Greene County. And I'm sure that, and our city engineer can tell me, and so can staff, that the capacity is sufficient to cover another 60 or 70 houses, however many of these are built. The size of the water mains and the size of the sewers and the pumping stations and so forth can take that. I too am concerned about a well because I'm on a well, and we like our water both price-wise and quality-wise, and we want to keep it that way. So for our developers, be forewarned, you can have a bunch of angry people if you mess with our wells. The couple of questions here for staff. One of the questions that was brought up was a percentage of impervious surface coverage. And I know you all do a calculation on that. Are we in compliance?
Yeah, I mean, I did a calculation on the right-of-way. I know that it was brought up before, but the right-of-way totals, and that includes the sidewalks, curb, gutter, and street, and everything. Even the 5-foot impervious surface between the sidewalk and the curb. Pervious surface between the sidewalk and the curb. And that only came out to 16%, 17% of the overall acreage. And so the only thing you would add to that would be the driveway and the houses. But there was no concern, especially with the large amount of open space and the 30-foot front yard and 35-foot rear yard setbacks, that they would go beyond the maximum coverage allowed within the zoning code.
Okay, and another point that was made was the 60-foot width on lots.
Yeah, we measure that
on that
on the pie-shaped lots. We actually measure that at the width at the building setback line, not at the road.
Right.
So.
But there's still a minimum width
of 60 feet.
No, I mean a minimum width of road frontage.
And
when you have these pie-shaped lots in a cul-de-sac.
And again, that's measured at the setback line, not at the road.
Okay.
So we didn't have a concern with that.
Don't run off. I got to read my notes here. Another thing that was brought up is that the detention pond, and folks, the difference between retention and detention, and I get them backwards too. Detention means that it simply detains the water and it only allows it to flow out at a given number of cubic feet per second. A retention pond retains the water and is wet all the time. It's a pond, it's got water in it. So that's the difference. Mm-hmm. And both ponds have outlets that are sized to allow only a certain amount of water flow and have enough cubic capacity to hold, help me out here, engineer, is it a 50-year flood, 100-year flood, 10-year flood?
Yeah, the maximums of the 100 will be studied.
Okay, so they're specifically sized to prevent excessive water flow off the property. And that's what that big pond in the southeast corner will do. This is dry. Pond is kind of a misnomer. It's kind of a depression in the ground. But if you would, and you may want to get Jeff up here too, talking about the detention pond in Ballymead and the height difference, and are they going to flow towards each other? Is this going to drain into that existing drain line that runs along Maple?
Yeah, the only thing we'd have to look at is the capacity of that pipe, I think, because, there is a pretty good flow of water and air from those springs, just to make sure we're not going to overload the pipe. That's something.
Pipe, I've not heard water run twice in the 3 or 4 years it's been there. There's always a flow of water in that existing pipe now.
Yes, correct. And again, we would make sure with the discharges, he's not going to, there's a certain capacity we can calculate for that 12-inch pipe. And just to make sure the water going in isn't going to exceed how much it can carry is what we would check out.
But now, will the Ballymead pond drain into this one, or does it bypass it entirely? And are they going to be calculated together, I guess, is what my question is.
Yeah, the way our ordinance reads is that, he has to worry about his side. He has a duty to comply with our ordinance for what he's discharging from his site. And where stuff that's happening off his property, he doesn't really have control over. But again, we do check the impact to existing public infrastructure like storm lines and such, where we don't want to overload that. So if there's going to be an issue with the pipe, trying to put too much water in one pipe, we can add another pipe or whatever we've got to do to make it work.
But you don't foresee runoff from Ballymead, since this directly abuts it, you don't foresee water running off from Ballymead going into this pond, or do you?
I don't see it going into the pond, no. Okay. It's going to go around the pond.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Just making sure I covered everything here. Okay, that's all. Believe it or not, that's all I've got. Second helping, gentlemen, and Ms. Aker.
Yes, sir. So for the builder, if I can just ask a couple questions. So you were saying 290K, ish, right? $290,000 per house.
That's correct.
That area, $110 a square foot, maybe. I would say it's the max, but on an older home in that area, you're lucky to get 110, 115 a square foot. At a 1,600 square foot house, I mean, you're talking less than $200,000. I mean, how do we know that those prices are going? Obviously, you can't see into the future either. But your math that got you to this point,
right?
How deep did you go? Because I know earlier you said until we get this kind of figured out, you don't go out and do.
We look at demographics, we look at resale, we look at the health of the resale market. How many months supply in different price buckets does a particular municipality have? And in this case, we look at this a little bit differently. Most of our communities will look at a school district as the key indicator. Not that we didn't look at that for this, but this is less, it's less important. The school district is less important on this particular site, and it kind of ties into, someone had questions with the schools and traffic. This is designed to be an age target. It's not age restricted, it's an age target. Our marketing is going to be to that basically 45 to 65-year-old, someone that's wanting to move down, someone that lives in the market, they raise their family in that, 24 to 3,200 square foot home, love Beavercreek, want to stay in the market. We're offering that. That's what we're intended to market this towards. So that's what helps establish our price points of where we believe we need to be and believe we can achieve. And do believe that. We build quite a bit of homes in, and I'll say Beavercreek schools. We've got a lot of communities in the township, and we've had communities in the city. So we know what homes that we build that we can sell. And you're right, $110 a square foot for a home that's 40, 50, 59 years, I think the one guy said, versus a new home that is, got the structural warranty. It's apples and oranges. It just really is. And it is not just only in this market, in every market we build in. That's something we look at. But what we really look at is the strength of the resale market in price points, regardless of the product and regardless of where and what it's adjacent to. Again, though, the market does dictate what the pricing of what we can sell houses for. If it's considerably less than that, starting out that 290, I don't think we would be very successful in this community, and we wouldn't get to this point if we didn't think we were good at what we did as far as from a marketing standpoint. And we're going to build, quite a few homes in Dayton, Ohio this year, and there's a reason why we build the number of homes. We know the market. I just like to tell people we're a marketing company that builds homes. We know the markets that we enter, and we know what people are willing to pay for the homes that we build.
So Ryan Homes, right? Giant corporation, or large builder, U.S. wide, right? Arguably.
Yes.
Are there different qualities of your homes? Are some brought in and 20 pieces and others stick built? I mean, how are you?
No, and I'll just be very candid, we're the third largest home builder in the entire country. We'll do between 18 and 19,000 homes this year in 2018. We operate under 4 or 5 different trade names depending on what part of the country we're in. There is one that's called NV Homes that is a semi-custom stick-built home that's built in basically the DC, Virginia area. Every other home that we build, especially under the Ryan Home name, the Fox Ridge Home name, all of the different home names that we build under none of them are stick-built. We made an investment about 3 or 4 years ago in a plant in the city of Dayton, right off of Route 35. So every single home that is built in Chicago, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus, the lumber comes in, raw lumber comes into that facility. It is panelized, framed, and sent out to those 5 different markets. So we've made a huge investment in Dayton, Ohio, to run our business. So none of them are stick built. Right. And I can talk to you for an hour or two as to the benefits of it not being stick built.
Understood.
There's huge benefits to that.
Thank you. You got one more, sir?
Yes.
You got your Fitbit on? All right, so Super Street in Shakertown. If I remember correctly, and I don't know how much this has changed, but Shakertown is going to now connect to Yellow Brick, right? And Shakertown will no longer connect to 35 at all. Is that correct? And South Alpha Bellbrook will take the place in some sense of Factory as the main drive.
That's correct.
North and south, or south and north, whatever. We add these homes to Shakertown. Mr. Engineer Jeff mentioned that you were going to add turn lanes and things like that. My question is, how much do you expect? How much of that traffic that was normally going to 35 to take a left, now you put in the right then left? How many people are going to go back down Shakertown from Factory and from South Alpha? And how much of that has been taken into consideration when you built the plans for the Super Street, and then now you're going to add 70 homes?
70 homes. The traffic counts of 70 homes is going to be just a small increase compared to what they see now. In terms of the number of cars entering 35. And when they do, like you said, they're going to reroute Shakertown down this way, and then ultimately have it intersect with Alpha Bellbrook here, and then also connect with Yellowbrook Road and extend Factory. So, that's taken into account. That'll increase the capacity, obviously, because you won't have this direct entrance to 35, which, as anybody that has tried to get on 35, either eastbound or westbound, knows that that's challenging. So starting, I believe, late this year or next year, we're going to start acquiring right-of-way and then start constructing. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2020 is when they're proposed to start constructing this, rerouting of Shakertown. I'm not sure about the timing of the actual Super Street itself, but the timing of Shakertown Road, being extended through the Casto property is starting in 2020. Now, how many cars will go right versus left out of this neighborhood? 50-50, I guess, would be the guess.
I'm not asking
way to tell that.
I guess my point was 70 houses now on the current as traffic currently runs, we don't know what's going to happen when Super Street comes in and Shakertown becomes, to some extent, a bypass for some of those houses, right?
Right, but the intent of this rerouting of Shakertown is to make that a safer area and be able to increase capacity without backing cars up trying to get on the 35.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. Anyone else? Oh, I know you do, Miss. Go right ahead.
I actually have two more questions. One for you, Randy.
Okay.
What is this park fees in here? I'm unfamiliar with that. Can you explain it?
Yeah, it's just it'll be a flat fee that they're going to have to pay when they do the subdivision. It's based on the idea that new residents are going to impact our existing parks. So it's a calculation. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly, but basically, I think what it says for every new person that they project within the neighborhood, and it's based off a census, the number of new people per home. It's like 2.5 people per home. So you had 70 homes, you do the multiplication, say there's going to be an additional 250 people living there. I think it's like 1/100th of an acre per person. So say, I guess just hypothetical number that they owe 2 acres worth of new park. We calculate based on an appraisal how much that raw land is worth. Say it's worth $25,000 an acre, and they owe 2 acres worth of park. Rather than squaring off 2 acres and having a little tiny little park, they would pay the city an impact fee of $50,000 park impact that we can use for capital improvements, existing parks, or for future acquisition of new parks. So every new resident pays their fair share of impacts on our parks.
So is the thought that the park or the park dedication would be within that?
No,
Is that
I
the
mean,
idea, or could it be
that's
anywhere,
why we
as
have
long
a
as they-
fee in lieu of park dedication. So instead of them dedicating 2 acres to the city and we're having a little tot lot or small playground, we're going to have them pay us, what 2 acres is worth, or whatever the acreage calculation is worth.
Whose decision is that? Is that the city's decision or the developer's decision?
We decided that our parks director decided she asked for a fee in lieu of park land.
Okay, that answers that question. And then I guess my other concern, and I don't really know that it's a question, I guess a concern that I'd like to raise, and I think that a lot of the residents raised, and I think that, well, I know, I'm also a member of the Neighborhood Act, so I know that it's a huge concern. It's the number of houses we have smashed into this small lot. I am concerned about that. How many houses were proposed in the former site plan?
Well, the former site plan had, I believe, 59, but they also had 5 acres of assisted living. The zoning allows for up to 3 dwelling units an acre.
Understood.
And I think I did the calculation, and at 3 dwelling units an acre, I think they would be able to build up to, I think it was like 85 homes. So they're below that. I think they're at 2.5-ish range right now, 2.45 of what they're proposing this evening. So it is lower than the max that they could seek out. And I think what has to do with that is the 20,000 square foot lots.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Gentlemen, you good? Yeah. One of the points that was brought up was that the stream, the Fairbrook Elementary stream, or whatever they call it, the little
tributary, yeah, the school tributary,
yeah, was choked up with trash and dead trees and so forth. Is that something that either we can put in as a condition that be cleaned out, or is that going to be done as part of creating that detention pond?
No, I mean, we
retention pond, excuse me.
We told them that they can't, we have that no tree removal zone.
Right, but I'm talking about dead stuff that's blocking the streamway.
I believe that the last time, when the neighborhood was going to come through the few months ago, I believe, Mr. Moore, didn't you go out and he went and walked that creek? And
okay.
I don't think that he had concerns with it, from my understanding.
Unfortunately, and I'm not casting aspersions on anybody, but unfortunately, a lot of times you will find that folks dump their grass clippings and their limbs and so forth in the stream.
I mean,
and that causes, I'm not casting aspersions, but that's been known to happen.
If there's like large trees or limbs in from their property line perspective, I mean, I'd hate to add a condition that they have to go up the entire stream. I'm sorry, but if there's something in the tributary now that you know is appropriate to be removed, you know, we can have them remove that. But I don't want to. I'd hate to have a condition that says they have to go a mile up the stream either way. I mean, that's just unfeasible.
But the creation of the pond itself will actually slow
what flows now towards it
will
will
slow the downflow to a controlled level,
right?
Rather than it being as it is now. The heavier the rain, the more the flow. Well, this will pond it and release at a certain pre-calculated level. One more thing, and I don't need you for this.
Okay.
Just a comment on traffic. I live on Shakertown, and some of my neighbors go by my house considerably faster than 25 miles an hour, and these are folks that live in the Platte. So I understand your concern, but I think that if you really think about it, I don't think folks that don't live in our Platte are going to be shortcutting through it. We are going to be shortcutting through the new Platte, so we don't have to sit there at Newton waiting to make a left turn onto North Fairfield Road. So this is going to be, I think, a convenience for us, and the folks in the new Platte are going to have to get used to it. But I have a feeling that we're going to be doing most of the shortcutting, we being the folks that live in the existing Platte. And if I would propose that we can do the city can do some sort of a traffic study once this is built out, and if there's a need for a speed table, we can put it in. If it turns out that there isn't the traffic flow that we're expecting, or there aren't people drag racing through the Platte, then there's probably no need for it. But rather than saying right up front, we've got to put it in, we might want to do the traffic study before. I think y'all did a traffic study on traffic flow in the Platte as it is now prior to the last public hearing we had. And it was, if you can remember that, I'm putting you on the spot to try to remember it, but.
From my memory, yeah, we did place one right near Newton and Shakertown. No, North Fairfield, sorry.
Right.
Newton and North Fairfield, and then one back further in the Platte, and we found that more people used Worcester, is it Worcester? Or what's the Shetland?
Shetland, yeah.
To get back into the
I know.
the
I can
back
tell you
sections
that.
opposed to Newton Drive. That's what we looked at and so we found that of all the people that came in the neighborhood, most of them used Shetland rather than Newton to get back into the back neighborhood.
And I would agree with that just from anecdotal, having lived there. Okay, thank you very much. Anything else for the good of the order here, folks? Okay, then I need a motion, and we can discuss the motion if you wish.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add, can we add some potential conditions?
We need a motion. We need a
first,
motion and a second first, and then if you want to add conditions, then we'll vote on the conditions.
Can you explain the difference between a condition and amendment? Or can someone, I'm sorry, is there a difference?
Well, we have conditions as part of the approval, and there are, let me find them here. There are, what, 20 right now?
So we're going to amend those conditions. Is that
Right,
correct?
either amend them or add new ones.
Right, if you're amending one that we've already proposed or adding a 21st.
Now, that would be the difference
or
between
22nd.
amending an existing condition or adding a new one. And I'm the chair, so I can't make that.
I'm going to suggest that we add a condition that limits the number.
We gotta to do the motion first. We need a motion and a second, and then we can add or modify conditions.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve PUD 17-3 SSP 2.
Thank you.
Would like to propose additional conditions.
I need a second before we can do anything.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Now, I will open it up to, and we'll look at each addition or change and then vote on them. We can either vote on them as a group or individually, and the maker can choose that.
Okay.
But each needs to be seconded.
Okay. I would like to propose that a 21st condition be added that does include a small speed table on Newton to help address some of these speeding concerns. I'm kind of with you. I really believe it's actually going to help the traffic up north, but to allay those fears, I'd like to propose a speed table be included in this design, a very minimalistic speed table.
At the juncture between old and new?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. The reduction in the size.
Okay. I have a proposal for a 21st condition. I need a second for it.
I'll second, Mr.
Okay, I have a second, and we'll vote on that separately. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-1. Okay? Next.
I have a 22nd condition.
Okay.
And I don't know how we would need to write this. I can't get over the signage, the temporary signage. I'm really stuck on that one. We talk about aesthetics in that neighborhood. I live back in that area as well. If we have a 10-year temporary sign that's sitting there in the middle, that just aesthetically, it turns into a commercial looking area when it's completely residential back there, when you have those giant signs.
Is there something for a sign already?
Yes.
There is,
There's a
yeah,
sign
it's
package
allowed a
included.
10-foot, it's an
Okay, well, you
8-foot sign, but.
need, what you really want to do is modify what's
Right.
already there, rather than adding a 22nd condition.
Was it in the actual,
Oh.
spelled out in the condition?
I thought it was one of the conditions, I'm sorry.
It says temporary signage, but doesn't address, I thought there was a temporary 14 entrance sign. Temporary sales and lots shall be similar in size and designs. Yeah, so it references Exhibit B, pages 1 through 5, and if you guys will look there, the signs they're 10 foot tall, so we don't allow commercial to go that high on a lot of their new developments. So I mean that one right now, that one's kind of. I'm just trying. How do we best address that? I'm okay with temporary signage, just not that tall and that ostentatious. You've got to be able to advertise.
And not indefinite.
Exactly. There's got to be some sort of. It's the age of the internet too. Let's be honest. Most of your stuff's going to get sold through a lot of other channels other than drive-bys. How would we write that appropriately? I'm sorry, I'm being a little long-winded.
Could I maybe, oh, sorry, never mind.
One thing we can do, for commercial construction, we have a 4x8 maximum, and we can say 6 feet tall. I mean, I'm sure the applicant has something input on that, but we can also require a bond. I mean, a small removal bond, so that and then require them to update they can renew the permit for that sign every 2 years, so that it doesn't, so we know that it's in good workmanship order. We can go back and take a look at it and say, hey, if you want to renew your license, you have to get a new, or you have to reface the sign if it's falling apart or something like that, or repaint the posts.
And I understand that. I guess the thing I can't get over is it's blue and huge in a residential neighborhood. That's, again, I can understand when you're out in the township where you're out in the country and you're kind of driving, you've got mixed use and all kinds of other things. I'm just, even if it was, I don't know. I know it'll be there in perpetuity until all the lots are sold.
We've always had that. Our marketing signs haven't changed, and we've built in Beavercreek before. We've always had those at the entryway.
You have to come to the microphone, sir, please.
We've built in Beavercreek before. That's our 4x8 marketing signs have not changed in the almost 20 years I've been here. And so those have always been at the entryway, not only of our communities in Beavercreek, but every other community. If there's an issue with the height of it, it doesn't need to necessarily go up to that 8 foot high. We can agree to, a 6 foot height.
I would be okay with it if it being just reduced down to 6. I think it's reasonable. And again, we make our commercial guys do everything in stone and this and that. If it was truly 2-year temporary sign, that's one thing, but we know it's gonna be there for 2, 4, 6, depending on how long it takes you to fill the lots. I mean, obviously you wanna do it as quick as possible.
Two
but-
years is our build out in this community.
Okay. All right, yeah, I would be okay with reducing the height to 6, so it'd be a total height, I think, of 8, because there's a 2-foot lift on the bottom of the sign.
And I propose putting forth that bond where they have the 2-year,
A 2-year.
2-year,
Yep.
and then the renewal.
Renewal period, so we
Please.
can make sure it's,
And they always do, I will say, your signs always do look very nice, even the temporary ones, you guys.
so 6 foot
do a
tall,
really good
2
job there.
years, and a bond required.
Yeah, that would be it.
Is it 6 or 6 plus the 2 foot?
6 plus the 2, it's just the sign itself is 10 foot in total height.
Uh.
I think bringing it down to 8 would make everybody a little bit happier there.
Right, so 8 foot max, but a 6 foot sign.
A 6 foot face.
So that there's a
6
2
foot-
foot
6 by
landscaping
6 by 4
underneath.
sign.
And our wizard clerk will get this all down correctly.
We'll replay
All the
the tape.
rambling I did.
We'll replay the
Put
tape
into
a
a
few times.
coherent paragraph. That's, so I motion that we we amend.
You are modifying.
Modifying
14.
condition 14.
Right.
I guess to reference the Exhibit B. Okay. I motion to, is that amendment?
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, just raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. That amendment carries, that amendment carries 5-0. Okay, what else? Gentlemen, ladies? Lady?
I'm going to propose that we limit the number of lot sizes. I know that it's within the code, but that is a lot of houses on
Number
them.
of lots? How many?
Lots,
Okay.
lots.
At this point, they have the zoning in place.
Yeah.
And the zoning, the PUD, when we went through those steps, that specified all the dimensional requirements and what could and could not fit under this piece of land. So at this point, limiting the number of houses is going to be difficult, if not impossible.
Okay,
So you're going to withdraw that?
I'll withdraw that.
Okay. Okay, well. Others?
I'm assuming that also entails the offsets between houses.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, so now we have 21 conditions with condition number 14 being modified. Okay? Any discussion on anything before we take a vote? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Height,
Nay.
Mr. Loftus,
Yes.
Mr. Schrader,
Yes.
Ms. Akers,
No.
Mr. Self.
Yes. Motion carries 3-2. And why don't we take a 5-minute break or so before we go on to the next item? And we are back again with count them, 2 more public hearings. The next one is PC 11-2, Mod 418.
This is case number PC 11-2, Mod 4 of 18, on an application filed by James D. Connell, 3650 Somerset Drive, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45431. The application requests a major modification for 3.326 acres of land to allow for the construction of a 3,500 square foot gymnasium addition to the existing child care facility located at 1481 North Fairfield Road. The property is further described as Book 5, Page 5, Parcel 183 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. This is another public hearing, so we'll go through the same procedure as we did previously with a presentation from the applicant, then from staff, then public input, and we will end up with discussion amongst ourselves. So I'm sure there is someone here representing the areas. Come right on down.
I'm Jim Connell. I live at 3650 Somerset Drive in Beavercreek, and I'm the agent for Inspire Center for Learning. They want to make some modifications to their building We built another facility on Wilmington Pike and put a small gymnasium on there, and it radically changed and improved the way they do their education, and gives them the space to work during inclement weather. And the facility is very much like this one, but without the gymnasium. So that's the improvement they'd like to make. It will add one classroom, but basically it's a small gymnasium, about 30 by 50, with a couple of closets, a classroom not bigger than this room, actually a little smaller, and a couple of toilet rooms will be added as well. And then it has a little ante area just outside the gymnasium for gathering. I'll answer questions or go sit down.
We'll come and have questions for you, but
Okay.
have a seat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case before you is PC 11-2. It's the modification of April of 2018. It's the Inspire Center for Learning. It's the former Bruning's clock shop there at North Fairfield Road and Lance. It's in central Beavercreek, just north of the intersection, about a half a mile north of the intersection of North Fairfield and Shakertown. Seen here is the existing building. North Fairfield's out here to the right. There's actually Lance Road extension about a couple hundred feet to the west is up here to the north of the building. I think it stops close to the this access point. But it's actually, I know in my staff report I wrote 3,844. That was, I got my numbers backwards. It's 3,488, not 3,844. So it's about 3,500 square feet. But that's going to go back here to the rear of the building. You know, again, it won't be highly visible from North Fairfield. I mean, it's a little taller. I mean, the way the roof is pitched, you'll be able to see it from North Fairfield, but not completely, because it'll be behind the existing building. Again, here's the proposed addition down to the south. It's 123 feet long. That includes both the gym and the classroom that the applicant talked about. It's 31 feet wide and to the middle of the gable roof. So how we measure a pitched roof is we go to the midpoint between the eaves or between the fascia board and the top of the roof. So we measure the midpoint of that, and that's the 24 feet. There'll be a slight change of the side yard setback. Because the building currently is at this location, it's 32 feet from the property line, so this proposed addition will be 15 feet. But you know, the side yard setbacks within the zoning district is 15 feet, so that, you know, they don't go against what the side yard setbacks are for this particular zoning district. The proposed elevations, you can see the gym is back here in contrast to the existing building. And what they're proposing to do is use the same existing tan ephes, and then the base of the building is it's an engineered wood. It's like a cedar shake, but it wraps the entire base of the existing building. So they're going to extend that existing material so that it's a seamless transition between what's old and new, and looks like it's been there all along. One of the discussions with the applicant was, you know, with the new classroom, is that going to impact the attendance? And the small classroom, there's the potential there for 20 extra students and 2 extra employees. So we had them add 6 parking spaces, and that will go to the west of the existing parking field and into this area. There are 7 conditions in your resolution. You know, this is a good addition to the building and will add to the quality of life for the students, and we recommend approval. This is a major modification, so it does. I don't do major mods for ASRAs very often. I can't think of one I've actually done. So this is a recommendation resolution, and it will ultimately go forward to City Council for review. So this isn't an administrative action. It's you are. You know, passing a resolution, whether you recommend or approval or disapproval. But again, staff recommends approval, and I'm here to answer any questions following the public hearing.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, this is a public hearing, so if there is anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of, against, or simply have questions, step right up. Seeing nobody, did we have any written input? No. Last chance. I'll close the public hearing, and I'm going to start to my left this time, just to shake things up.
I don't have any additional questions.
Excellent. Ms. Akers?
No questions.
Oh, I see a trend here.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, no questions.
No questions. Dang. I don't either. This looks like very straightforward. This is one of our former members, Tom Poliquin, who would have called this one of the no-brainers. Everything looks good. The buildings all match, which is important, and it's going to look nice, and it's going to help the community. So, sounds like a good plan to me. So I'll entertain a motion for approval with the conditions.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve PC 11-2 Mod 418 Major with the attached 7 conditions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I second.
And I have a second. Any further discussion? I didn't think so. Okay, you want to read the roll, please?
Mr. Loftus?
Yes.
Mr. Schreider?
Yes.
Ms. Akers?
Yes.
Mr. Height?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. We're pleased as punch that you're enlarging your facility. And staff, thanks a lot for your typically good report. Okay, moving right along, we have one more public hearing, and that is PUD 93-4.
This is case number PUD 93-4 Mod 4 of 18 on an application filed by Gwen Gatto, 11501 North Lakeview Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45249. The application requests a major modification to the specific site plan to allow for the construction of a 4-tenant building located on the southeast side of Center Drive and Crossings Boulevard. The property is further described as Book 4, Page 2, Parcel 21 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. Before we go into the public hearing, we need to untable this. So I need a motion to untable.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
And a second?
Second.
And we'll do that by general consensus. Yes. Thank you. Okay, we're untabled and official now. So if the applicant would like to come forward and tell us what he has in mind.
Absolutely. Zach Freshner, CESO, representing Phillips Edison Company on this project. Applicant's looking to build a 5,300 square foot commercial retail use on the out parcel that's currently vacant parking. Essentially, there's no one that parks out there. It's unutilized space. As you guys know, retail centers are kind of in an abundance of parking these days with the onset of e-commerce and such. So this would be a better use for this piece of land and for our property owner and developer. So I'm here to answer any questions, and they're here as well, answer any questions you have on the proposal.
Excellent, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Before you is an application requesting approval to modify the existing site plan for PUD 93-4. Should you choose to approve this application, it would allow for the construction of approximately 5,300 square foot multi-tenant building within the Beavercreek Town Center development. As you can see, Beavercreek Town Center is the one that contains the Lowe's, the Kohl's, TJ Maxx, all of those stores. This is the area that the applicant is proposing to develop here. It is across the street from the Skyline, which is here, and the McDonald's here, Olive Garden, and Steak and Shake. So the specific site plan for the shopping center was approved in 1994, and at that time it granted approximately 469,000 square feet of retail space, retail and restaurant space. All of that space has been built. So there is 468,498 square feet of restaurant and retail out there. In order to approve this additional retail and restaurant space, it has to go through the major modification process instead of just the minor. So it has to go through Planning Commission and City Council. So that's basically why we're here this evening. So the applicant briefly touched on parking for the site. As I stated, the multi-tenant building will be single-story, 5,300 square feet. So at this time, we don't know if what's going to be restaurant, what's going to be retail. It is proposed to be 4 tenants. That may change as well. But we based our parking calculation on doing 50-50, so half of it restaurant, half of it retail. And they would need 32 spaces plus employees. What they're proposing is 44 spaces, and this is in the vicinity of the building, so in this small area here. When you look at the excuse me, when you look at the actual aerial photo, you see the amount of parking in the surrounding areas that can be used, that can be utilized. This is all one single lot, so all of the parking belongs to everyone. So I think there are 3,005 parking spaces in the development. If you look at the aerial, you can see that less than 50% of those 3,005 are used on any given day. So parking is absolutely not going to be an issue here. One of the things that we did condition was, and what they included in their plans was a crosswalk over to the other parking. Also some adjustments of the terminal island so that people can walk through the terminal island, and then also some additional signage to alert the people on this road that there is a crosswalk there, because people generally do move a little faster through there because there isn't really much going on there now. As far as the building design goes, pretty simple, kind of the type of multi-tenant building that we've been seeing over the past couple of years. Brick, ephes, some stone on the base. Pretty consistent with surrounding developments and recent developments in the area. Oops. And then one of the conditions we did add, I think the back of the building shows an additional cooler to be added at a future date. That probably depends on the tenants. And that cooler would have to be approved by us, by the planning department, so that we can make sure that everything still looks good and is consistent with the existing building. We added conditions for the dumpster matching the materials being used, and also to ensure that the rooftop units would be screened from all directions, since this building can be driven around in all directions. Signage is already dictated by the specific site plan of the original specific site plan, 250 square feet of signage for the entire building. And then they're allowed one small ground sign, 40 square feet per side, 5 feet in height, which is consistent with all the other developments in that same area. So based on that, staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the attached resolution. And if you have any questions, I can answer those following the public hearing.
Thank you very much. Told us everything we need to know. Since it's a public hearing and our audience has dwindled, I'm not sure there's anybody here but who wishes to speak, but if you do, please step forward. Not seeing anybody. Did we have any written input?
No.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing and I'll start with Ms. Akers.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Me next. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say the parking and the crosswalk, it was kind of like you read our minds, like questions you knew we were going to ask and talk about. So I just wanted to say thank you. You made that super simple. No questions.
That's why we have such a good staff. They read our minds.
No questions, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Just a point of history. I believe when this was first approved back in 1993 or 94, this was actually shown as an outlot. And the reason we're approving is because they've hit the max, the 469,000 square feet max. So we are basically approving more square feet of building. But this was designated, that's why that odd little parking lot is way out in the middle of nowhere. It was designated as an outlot, and it was easier to pave it than to mow it. So they just paved it as parking lot. Sandra, there is one of these, and I just haven't found it. One of the conditions says that the building is four-sided, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the building is actually four-sided, so the I'm sorry. So the condition, the first condition that states that the elevations are as approved pretty
Okay.
much covers the
So
four-sided
the
architecture.
backside,
The
it
backside
looks the
has
same
all
as-
of the same
Exactly.
features
Okay.
as the sides and
I
the front.
thought that was in the original PUD for the buildings that
I think you're
were
correct.
out in the middle of
Yeah.
out in the middle of the lot, not along the.
Yeah, I think it
along
is in the
back.
PUD.
Okay. And we don't, since it's all one parcel, we don't need cross-access parking
That is correct.
agreement. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, folks, anything else before I ask for a motion? Then I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve PUD 93-4 mod 418 with the attached 15 conditions.
Okay, I have a motion.
Mr. Chair, second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Might as well just read the roll. I don't think anybody's got any more questions.
Mr. Schreider?
Yes.
Ms. Akers? Yes. Mr. Height?
Yes.
Mr. Loftus?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
Yes, motion carries 5-0, and we're looking forward to seeing something other than paving there. We have one more item, and this is a decision item. It's a minor mod for the Black Rock Bar and Grill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting approval to modify the existing site plan for PUD 88-21 in order to allow for the demolition of the former Don Pablo's restaurant and the construction of an approximately 8,200 square foot restaurant, which would be the Black Rock Bar and Grill. As seen in the architectural elevations, the applicant is proposing an 8,210 square foot restaurant. That will be comprised primarily of dark gray brick, stone, and gray ephes. I actually have a photograph of an existing one in Michigan, so I think it gives a better representation of what it will actually look like than the rendering. One of the items that we added a condition on if you look at the east elevation here, which if you remember the Don Pablo's, it's pretty visible from all angles just because of the way it sits in the ring road, and then you have Fairfield and Pentagon. We wanted to make that east elevation look a little bit better. It looks a little drab there, so the applicant actually added some additional pillars on the back, which aren't shown in this color elevation, that will be included with the final permit. If you look at the site plan, the proposed and the existing, the building outline isn't really changing too much. Again, they are completely demolishing the building and putting up a new one. Square footage is very similar. The parking field is staying the same. They are going to go through and tear out any dead or dying landscaping. We added a condition that states that we'll go out and take a look and make sure, and let them know what needs to be replaced. And since it's been sitting vacant for a couple of years now, things probably aren't doing that well out there. So we will make sure that it looks good when it's finished. Staff is recommending approval with the 7 conditions in the attached staff report. And if you have any questions, I can answer those now. And the applicant is also here as well. to
Okay,
answer any
great,
questions.
thank you. I'll just throw this open, since I had so many comments on the last 2.
Commented out.
Well, I do. Just quick, and I'm surprised you didn't come up with it, a crosswalk.
Well,
I remember from Don Pablo days that more than once we had to take our lives in our hands and cross the ring road because the parking lot was full.
Yeah, one of the reasons we didn't require a crosswalk on this one, and if you guys decide that you want to, that's fine, but the restaurant, based on the formula, would need 70 parking spaces total, based on the employees and the square footage, and they're providing 118. So, that, I mean...
Well, I guess we can always come back and, if it looks like the lot's full all the time. I just remember when Don Pablo's was fairly new, the lot was full.
Yeah.
And I'm sure our new restaurant hopes their lot is full too. I got a yes on that. So if y'all think it's not necessary, then we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we felt that the difference in the amount of parking that was necessary, that it was required as opposed to what they're providing, was sufficient to not deem a crosswalk necessary.
I don't want to hear any prospective customers becoming hood ornaments. Okay, anything else? Gentlemen, Ms. Aker? Nope? Okay. Then I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve PUD 88-21, Mod 518, with the attached 7 conditions.
Okay. I have a motion,
Mr. Chair, I second.
and I have a second. Thank you. Read the roll.
Ms. Akers?
Yes.
Mr. Height?
Yes.
Mr. Loftus?
Yes.
Mr. Schrader?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
Yes, motion carries 5-0, and we are fresh out of agenda items. So unless anyone else has anything for the good of the order, I'll ask for an adjournment motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I second.
And I have a second, and we'll do that by general acclamation and leaving the seats.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 8:14.
Looking forward to having another new restaurant over here.